Hello friends, today's video is about John Milton and his works. So I have added here all-time top questions on John Milton and his works. So let's begin the video. First of all, Milton was a civil servant for the Commonwealth of England during whose reign. So it was Oliver Cromwell during whose reign Milton was the civil servant. Okay, because Oliver Cromwell was the king at that time of England, and Milton served as a civil servant at that time of the for the Commonwealth of England. Then Milton's Paradise Lost was written in blank verse format. Yes, blank verse format. The style of writing poetry. It was written in blank verse, and Paradise Lost was published two times. First, it was published with 10 books in 1667 with 10 books, and then it was published in 1674 with two more books. So total 12 books. Okay. Then Milton also wrote in Latin language. His first Latin elegy was Elegia Prima. Elegia Prima was his first Latin elegy, friends, and uh, he also wrote many other works in Latin language. Then which of Milton's works is considered as the most influenced defense of free speech and freedom of press? So friends, it was Aeropagitica. Aeropagitica was his work, a great work by Milton, published in 1644, which is considered as the most influenced defense of free speech and freedom of press. Free speech and freedom of press. So that is described here by Milton in his work Aeropagitica, published in 1644. It is a defense of free speech and freedom of press. Then which writer called Milton as the greatest English author in his biography? So it was William Haley. William Haley in 1796, he published his own biography, William's biography, and in his biography, William Haley described Milton as the greatest English author. Then, who called Paradise Lost as a poem which, with respect to design, may claim the first place, and with respect to performance, the second, among the productions of human mind? So it was Samuel Johnson, friends. Samuel Johnson, great critic and writer of his time. He called Paradise Lost. Uh, this statement he described for Paradise Lost as a poem which, with respect to design, may claim the first place, claim the first place, and with respect to performance, the second. Yes, for performance, it has the second place, and among the productions of human mind. So this statement was stated by Samuel Johnson. Then who was called as the Lady of the Christ? It was John Milton, friends. Lady of the Christ. This phrase was used for John Milton because John Milton was very much fair looking and looking very handsome. That's why his face was like that. So he was called by his friends as the Lady of the Christ. Then Milton's first Latin elegy was written to Charles Diodati. Diodati was a person uh, to whom Milton's first Latin elegy was written. Then Lycidas, 1638, the publication here, was written on the death of Edward King. Edward King, to whom it was dedicated. Lycidas was dedicated to Edward King, and this particular poem was published in 1638. And friends, one more thing, it was composed in 1637, and after 1 year, it was published by Milton. Then Milton was praised by Samuel Johnson in his work Life of the Most Eminent English Poets. So Milton was praised by Johnson, Samuel Johnson, in his work, Samuel Johnson wrote a work in his work on life of the most eminent English poets. In that particular work, it is a critical work, friends. So in that particular work, Johnson praised Milton. Then Milton wrote masques, arcades, and Comus for noble patrons, connections of the Egerton family. So arcades and Comus, these are the two masques by Milton. Yes, these are two masques by Milton. And these two masques are written for noble patrons, connections of the Egerton family. Then identify the work written by Milton to suggest reform in the national universities. So friends, there is one work by Milton which suggested reforms in the national universities of England. Reforms. So reformation he wanted to suggest by this work, and this work was of education. It is actually a tract by Milton. It is a tract by Milton on education, and it was published in 1644. Then identify the prose work by Milton, Art of Logic and History of Britain. So Art of Logic and History of Britain, there are two prose works by Milton. Then Milton's prose entitled as Art of Logic is a grammar textbook. A grammar textbook it is. Art of Logic is basically a grammar textbook. It is describing grammar in it. Sorry. So it is a prose work by Milton and it is a grammar textbook. Then identify the poem by Milton which was anonymously included in the second folio edition of Shakespeare. So that poem's name is On Shakespeare, published in 1630. So this poem was anonymously included without any name. So it is basically written by Milton, but it was included without Milton's name in the second folio edition of Shakespeare. Then who published Milton's collected works, 1645 poems. So this is a title of that collection of poems, friends, 1645 poems, and it was published by Humphrey Moseley. Humphrey Moseley was the person who published Milton's collected works, 1645 poems. Then friends, which two works of Milton were appeared in the same year? So same year, so in the same year, for example, this one, 1671, this is the particular year in which both the works Paradise Regained and Samson Agonistes, these two works are published by Milton in 1671. In which of his work Milton also supported polygamy? It was De Doctrina Christiana. De Doctrina Christiana was the Latin work by Milton in which he supported polygamy. Then, who described Milton as the poet of the sublime? So, it was John Dryden, friends. John Dryden, in his criticism, he described Milton as the poet of the sublime. So, the poet of sublime is name given by John Dryden to Milton. Then, who narrated Milton as a character in his poem? So, it was William Blake. William Blake narrated Milton as a character. He used Milton as a character in his poem. Then Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. Who stated this? So it was Wordsworth. In his poem London, he stated this particular statement, this line, Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. So it was London poem published in 1802 by Wordsworth, in which he stated this line. Then who said Milton was the poetic son of Spenser? So it was John Dryden. John Dryden suggested, John Dryden called Milton as the poetic son of Edmund Spenser. Sorry. Wordsworth's The Prelude was modeled on which of Milton's work? So it was Paradise Lost. So the Prelude was modeled. So a style was used by Wordsworth like Paradise Lost in Prelude. Then, which work of Milton was cited as the first amendment to the United States Constitution? So it was Aeropagitica by Milton, which was cited as the first amendment to the United States Constitution. Then, what does allegro means? Allegro means a happy man. Then what does Il Penseroso mean? So it means melancholy man. So both these works are in opposite to each other, in opposition to each other. Allegro and Il Penseroso, both these works are in opposition. One means happy man and one means melancholy man. Then, who stated the sonnet in Milton's hand becomes a trumpet? So it was Wordsworth. Very famous line, friends. The sonnet in Milton's hand becomes a trumpet, and it was stated by William Wordsworth. Then the Masque Arcades, published in 1632 by Milton, was written in praise of Alice Spencer. Alice Spencer was the person to which the Arcades, the masque written by Milton, is a praise for Alice Spencer, and it was published in 1632 by Milton. It was written in praise of Alice Spencer. Then Horton poems were written by Milton. Horton poems, it is a kind of poems, the title of the poems, collected poems by Milton, and these Horton poems were written by John Milton. Then Milton's Horton poems include, so friends, here the collection of Horton poems includes Upon the Circumcision, At a Solemn Music, On Time, Arcades, and Comus, and Lycidas. So these are 5 poems written by Milton. Upon the Circumcision, At a Solemn Music, On Time, Arcades, and Comus, and Lycidas. These are included under the category of Horton poems by John Milton. Then, friends, Dr. Johnson criticized Lycidas as inherent improbability of its pastoral convention. So this phrase, long phrase, was used by Dr. Samuel Johnson to criticize Lycidas, the work by Milton. So it is a phrase given to this particular work, inherent improbability of its pastoral convention. Then who said that Satan is the real hero of Paradise Lost? So it was John Dryden who stated that Satan is the real hero of Paradise Lost. Then how many sonnets were written by Milton? So the numbers of sonnets are 24 different sonnets, friends. 24 sonnets were written by John Milton, and 19 poems were in English. 18 or 19, the number is not specific, but around 19 poems are written by John Milton in English, and 5 were written by in Latin language. And all these poems are written in Petrarchan style. An octave and a sestet is used there in English poems. Then the first poem of Milton was On Shakespeare. It was published in 1630. The first poem by Milton. Then the last poem by Milton was Poems and Sea upon Several Occasions. This was the last poem by Milton, published in 1673. Then, on his blindness, is also known as when I considered how my light is spent. This is the phrase given to this poem on his blindness by Milton. It is also known as by this phrase, when I considered how my light is spent. It is used for On His Blindness by John Milton. On His Blindness was published in 1652, friends. Then, identify the chronological order of Milton's major poems. So, major poems are here in chronological order. First of all, Il Penseroso, published in 1631. So, it will come first. Then, Lycidas, published in 1638. Then, Paradise Lost in 1667. And Paradise Regained in 1671. Okay, so this is the correct chronological order, friends. Then the first edition of Paradise Lost was published with 10 books. The first edition published in 1670, 1667 it was published with the first edition with the 10 different books. Then Milton added 2 more books to Paradise Lost and republished it in 1674. So in 1674 he republished the work Paradise Lost with 2 more books. So total 12 books were published by adding 2 more books. First, it was published with 10 books, then it was republished in 1674 with 12 books. Then, what did Milton add in the 1674 edition of Paradise Lost to summarize the plot of each book for the readers? So, here Milton added something in 1674 edition of Paradise Lost to summarize the plot. He summarized the plot of each book for the readers. So Milton added an introductory prose named as argument. So argument, the name given by Milton, in which he added the summary of the plot of each book. So introductory prose named entitled as argument was added by Milton in this 1674 edition of Paradise Lost. Then, which different shapes Saturn takes in Paradise Lost? So, different shapes or characters are assumed by Saturn in Paradise Lost, and these characters are first one comet and meteor, the falling star we can say, then cherub, then cormorant and toad and serpent and snake. These are the different shapes taken by Saturn in the Paradise Lost. Then friends, Milton lived through which English periods? Very important question, friends. So Caroline age, then Commonwealth age and Restoration age. During these 3 periods, Milton lived and he wrote his works during these 3 periods. Then Milton's Samson Agonistes is a poetic play. It is a poetic play. Its genre is a poetic play. Then, who betrayed Samson Agonistes? So it was Delilah. Delilah betrayed in Samson Agonistes the work. Samson's wife she was. Delilah was Samson's wife, and she betrayed Samson in the work by Milton, Samson Agonistes. Then, which book of Paradise Lost describes the first meeting of Adam and Eve? So, first meeting, when they first meet. So, the book number 4 is the book in which Milton described the first meeting of Adam and Eve. Then, who was next in command after Saturn in Paradise Lost? So it was Beelzebub. Beelzebub was the person who was in command after Saturn. So he was assistant of Saturn in Paradise Lost, who was in the command after Saturn in Paradise Lost. Then Milton borrowed the theme of Comus from Homer's Odyssey. Homer's Odyssey is the work by Homer, the epic poem from which Milton borrowed the theme of Comus. This is the prose work of Milton for which he borrowed the theme from Homer's Odyssey. The principles of free will and divine justice are discussed in Book 3, Paradise Lost. So the principles of free will, these two principles, free will and divine justice, are discussed in Book 3 of Paradise Lost by Milton. Then friends, Milton's masque Comus was celebrating a woman's faith and virtue. This is the story here. Woman's faith and virtue is described here in the prose work by Milton, the masque by Milton, Comus, and it was published in 1637. Which work by Milton is labeled as monody? So, monody is a type of writing, and Lycidas is a type of monody. It was labeled as monody by Milton. Then the theme of Paradise Lost is justifying the ways of God to man. So this is the theme. The very popular question it is, which is the theme of Paradise Lost? So it is justifying the ways of God to man. Then friends, in which work does William Blake say that Milton was a true poet and of Devil's party without knowing it? So William Blake stated this, Milton was of a Devil's party without knowing it. So this book was The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. So friends, we know that it was William Blake who stated this, but in which work he stated this, that is important. That's why I added this one, question. Milton was a true poet and of Devil's party without knowing it. It was stated in William Blake's work, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. So friends, that's all for today for Milton. Some of the very important questions I tried here to add in this particular video for Milton and in his works. You can also find some more questions in the books or online in different YouTube videos also. But most of the questions I have included here. So follow me on these social media platforms, friends, and also subscribe to my channel for more videos on different writers and poets and novelists as well as dramatists of English literature. So till then, have a good day and bye-bye.